Uhuru.
Uhuru, everyone. Welcome to the Reparations Study Group. My name is Jackson, and I'm a very proud member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And I'm here with our national chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Jesse Nevel.
Uhuru Jackson, good to be here.
Uhuru Chair Jesse. So this is episode 7, lucky number 7, of the Reparations Study Group. And our theme today is very apt. It's called Vanguard Up, Unity of Theory and Practice. And that, in fact, is the theme of the African People's Socialist Party's first plenary of the 7th Congress that is happening in 8 days.
My God.
Yes.
Coming up.
I'm sorry?
It's coming up.
It's coming up. So if you don't have your registration or tickets, don't want to miss it. 3-day conference of the African People's Socialist Party featuring Chairman Omali Yeshitela of the African People's Socialist Party. Now, if you're new, we in the Uhuru Solidarity Movement were formed by and are working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party and Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And so they formed the Solidarity Movement in '76. And here we are, and at the plenary, Chairman Omali Yeshitela will, of course, be speaking a lot, the political report to the plenary, and speaking on other topics throughout, or other, on more specific topics going forward throughout the 3 days. Louise Kinshasa of African Socialist International will be speaking, particularly on the 7th day, or second day. And of course, other members of the African People's Socialist Party, whom we all salute. So we salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onazene Yeshitela, who will be speaking on the first day about the economic and political R1 and all of the programs of the Black Power Blueprint that all the reparations we raise in the Solidarity Movement go to. So we salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onazene Yeshitela, and all the members of the African People's Socialist Party, including Kile Anai, who is the Director of Agitation and Propaganda, and included in that is being the Editor-in-Chief of the Burning Spear newspaper, which we are studying today, page 14, the call to the first plenary of the 7th Congress, Vanguard Up, the Unity of Theory and Practice. Now, also speaking is Penny Hess, the author of Overturning the Culture of Violence. So if you don't have this book, highly recommend getting it at Burning Spear Marketplace. She'll be speaking on the 3rd day. She's the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and will be speaking along with Chair Jesse Nevel as well on the 3rd day. So very much looking forward to that presentation. So salute Chairwoman Penny and Chair Jesse.
Uhuru.
Yes, and again, if you're new, the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. We're under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. That's actually our first point of unity. We have 3, so that's 1. And then 2, we recognize that African people have the right to self-determination. They lead their own struggle. And 3, we organize in the white community for reparations. So I want to appreciate our comrades here in St. Petersburg, Florida, Jamie Simpson, Ali Aiello, Johan Bedingfield, Santosh, and Roberto, supporter Ignacio, who've been doing a lot of outreach this week on the ground here. So at various marches and rallies and just markets and events. So salute. Uhuru. So, we are studying the Burning Spear newspaper, which is the newspaper of the African People's Socialist Party. And these studies are your place to ask your questions and find out more about the African People's Socialist Party and the Uhuru movement. Here we are. Here's our cover photo. And we also have the poster for the African People's Socialist Party's plenary. You see Chairman Omali Yeshitela with his fist raised, Vanguard Up, Unity of Theory and Practice, and hence the theme of this episode. So we studied the newspaper, the African People's Socialist Party, the Burning Spear, because it is the voice of the African working class. It shows the world as it really is from the perspective of the most oppressed and slandered. We're in our little white bubbles of white culture. We don't see the world or experience the world as it really is. And so this opens our eyes and we have to see the world how it really is in order to know how to change it and have the motivation to change it, because if we know, the social system has not always been how it is, and it is not normal. Genocide is not normal. What's called rape culture, colonial violence is not normal. The prison system is not normal, and we can do something about it through reparations to African people. And so I know we'll be talking a lot about that. It is also expressing the theory of African internationalism. African internationalism is the political theory of the African People's Socialist Party, created by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And you can learn more about African internationalism through, of course, the Burning Spear newspaper, but also on Omali Taught Me Sunday Studies, that Chairman Omali Yeshitela leads himself every Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at youtube.com/Uhuru TV or facebook.com/Omali.Yeshitela. Also in Vanguard, the Advanced Detachment of the African Revolution, the chairman's latest book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, and other books of the African People's Socialist Party as well. And of course here on the Reparations Study Group. And on, there'll be more, I know, more media coming from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement specifically very soon.
Yep.
So, Uhuru, Chair Jesse, would you like to add anything before going to our article?
Sure. Thank you, Jackson. I want to join you in saluting and upholding the incredible revolutionary leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, especially the National Central Committee and its chair, the chairman,
Yes.
Omali Yeshitela, who has fought for over 50 years, sometimes alone, against the grain, against the wind, against the counterinsurgency war to crush the Black Revolution, to rebuild the Black Revolution, and to bring, to struggle to bring the world back to a place that it was in the 60s, where revolution was, as the chairman says, spoken in almost every language on almost every continent of the planet Earth as the main trend in the world.
Yes.
So this is the work that the chairman has taken upon his shoulders, and he's done everything that needs to be done. He's built the organization, he's developed the revolutionary theory, the ideology, and he's laid the groundwork and built the organization. He's built the party and solved every problem, including even the problem of white people, and the problem that we have posed for revolutionary struggles of oppressed peoples of the past. We've been an unreliable ally, if you will, and more often than not, we have taken the side of our own government, our own ruling class, in uniting with and being complicit with the pillage and torture and bombing and murder of the oppressed peoples of the world for our benefit, so we can get access to their loot, to their resources, and build our own dreams and aspirations on their crushed dreams and aspirations. So that's not the kind of world that we want to be a part of. And the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali Yeshitela, and the party itself has built the vehicle through which white people can join the rest of humanity in fighting to build a world without oppression and exploitation and war and slavery and genocide and all of those horrendous realities which has, as the chairman said, have become normalized under U.S. imperial domination of the planet. So I also want to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela. I was just in St. Louis for about 2 weeks, and I got to see with my own eyes something that I had been, like many of you, experiencing mainly through pictures on Facebook, which is the developments across the street from the Uhuru House. The Black Power blueprint is expanding rapidly, and the work that Deputy Chair T'Charwa, ORED, Kitty Riley, and Malika, the regional party leader for the Midwest, and Chairwoman Penny Hess, and Casey Mackey, and Raya Fogarty, and so many others. I mean, the movement is amazing there. Faux Feet, President Kalambayi, the president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. I mean, being in the eye of the hurricane, being in, the Uhuru movement in St. Louis, in this key battleground of the African Revolution for a couple weeks, was an incredible experience. And I encourage everybody to register, to get ready to come to St. Louis, come back to St. Louis, or come for the first time for the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's National Convention, Reparations Uprising, which I know we're going to talk about later, April 18th and 19th. So I also want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess.
Who's tuning in right now.
All right,
So
Uhuru.
salute Chairwoman Penny, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairwoman Penny. Yeah, Penny did an amazing study last Saturday night, which was broadcast from this very page. And we'll be doing a monthly study series
Great.
from the African People's Solidarity Committee. So you definitely want to tune into those. We'll be releasing the dates for those as well. And those go really deep into the theory of African internationalism as laid out by Chairman Amali Shatella, and how it relates to us and how it relates to the work that we do and informs the work that we do as a strategic front of the African revolution inside the belly of the beast. So, and finally, I want to salute you, Jackson, and I want to immensely appreciate the work that you do both here in St. Pete as the St. Pete chair, but also making these studies happen. I think I speak on behalf of all members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement in appreciating the value that these studies bring in arming us on how to go out there and organize and study the burning spear. This is the greatest tool that we have in our arsenal to win the masses of white people to reparations to African people. So, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chair Jesse. And I want to give a shout out, of course, to Chairman Penny, who's tuning in, and to members of USM who are tuning in, such as Paula Lipsy and Jake Scott, and let me see, Kristen Forthen. And there are people tuning in on YouTube, but I don't see comments yet, so I can't give you specific shout-outs or shout-outs to the rest of everyone on Facebook. Oh, Johan Beddingfield from Clearwater. And also salute our engineer, Amanda Carlozzi, Uhuru, who is our National Vice Chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and National Treasurer, and about 7 billion other roles as well.
Many hats.
So Uhuru. So here we have the call to the first plenary of the 7th Congress, Vanguard Up, the Unity of Theory and Practice. It's on page 14 of your January Burning Spear newspaper that you can get at burningspearmarketplace.com. Oh, and I also want to encourage everyone to share this far and wide, message it to a friend, message it to your mom. We want as many people as possible tuning into these studies. This is the place to get your questions answered in terms of reparations. What does that look like? What is socialism? Any question you have about the African Revolution, about socialism, communism, and how to be a white person in solidarity with African people and other oppressed peoples, and what we're doing about climate change, just any political question, this is your place. Yep. So you can leave a comment or you can call in at 727-537-9171, and I will put you on speaker on my phone and we'll answer your question. So our moderator has put that in the comments, and I think it's time that we started our article.
All right,
so I can begin and then hand it over halfway to you, Chair Jesse.
Sounds good.
Great. And we see a powerful photo of Chairman Amali Shatella leading the National Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party at the 7th Congress, which was in November of last year, and going to the flag raising of the African flag. So this is written by Chairman Amali Shatella himself. So, in the political climate of today's world, where a desperate imperialism is attempting to obscure its loss of credibility and authority, political and ideological clarity is more important than ever. Imperialist instability abounds. Contests between the great powers is one indicator. China and the U.S. are the dominant actors in this drama. A post-Soviet revitalized Russia also contributes to the challenge of U.S. global hegemony and the existing U.S.-defined global order. Prior political arrangements throughout Europe are being torn asunder. The entire imperialist system is undergoing radical economic reorganization due to the political pressures brought about by peoples fighting to rescue themselves, their families, and their futures from white domination and its imperialist progeny. The contest between these forces and other forces helps to unleash and exacerbate struggles in an Africa increasingly seeking solutions not tethered to traditional colonial restraints. On one side are the masses of our people, the workers and poor peasants. On another side are the neo-colonial class and their governments. Terms from a distant past are re-emerging in the popular lexicon, attempting to fill the vacuum created by the defeat of the Black Power revolution of the 60s, a time when revolution expressed itself mightily in almost every language and almost every place on the planet as the main trend of the world. Today, opportunists and other adherents of imperialism bandy about words like socialism and revolution. Many also attempt to preempt revolutionary mass African revolt by declaring themselves advocates of reparations. Dead revolutionaries and defeated revolutions have become the refuge of opportunists and imperialist ideologues who would rescue the language of the defeated revolution as a weapon against the people's struggle for forward motion. It is this atmosphere, roiling with great revolutionary potential on the one hand, and bald-faced opportunism on the other, that informs the first plenary of our party's 7th Congress. Quote, Vanguard up, the unity of theory and practice, end quote, secures the custody of our revolution in the hands of its trusted, most capable, experienced, and politically mature advanced detachment. We are saying that words alone are not enough. Declaring oneself a socialist, a revolutionary, or anti-imperialist is meaningless in and of itself. The achievement of socialism can only come about through the defeat of capitalism. To be a genuine socialist is to be engaged in struggle to defeat capitalism that owes its existence and success to colonial slavery. To be a genuine socialist is to engage in the struggle to destroy the colonial pedestal upon which capitalist parasite lives and thrives. To be a socialist in an era of colonial capitalist rule is to be a revolutionary, consumed by the struggle to replace the cruel colonial capitalist state with the state of the liberated, armed African working class. There must be practice that is informed by advanced revolutionary theory, manifested in the real world by disciplined cadre of the working class party. That advanced theory is African internationalism, the theory of practice exemplified by the nearly 50-year history of the African People's Socialist Party. The party's 7th Congress, held nearly a year and a half ago, was the most important Congress of our party since the first Congress of 1981. This is the call to all party and Uhuru movement members under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to convene in St. Petersburg, Florida, from February 1st through 3rd, 2020, for the first plenary of our 7th Congress. Our response to the compelling requirement of our 7th Congress for party members to consciously assume the role imposed on our party by history as the advanced detachment, vanguard, of the African working class and forcibly dispersed colonized African nation will be examined and improved on during this plenary. Here we are, since our Congress.
Since our Congress, we have initiated the regional strategy for our work internationally. Effectively, this strategy is a concrete implementation of the fight to occupy territory, dual power as a means of eroding the power and influence of colonial capitalism everywhere. The regional strategy also provides the party with the ability to escalate the development of leaders and leadership throughout the structures of our party. The immediate growth of our party will radiate out from regional hubs. Regional leaders will organize in every community, village, city, province, and state, establishing local offices everywhere from within the regions, mostly through our mass organizations, especially, but not exclusively, the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement in PDUM. The development of our organizational, political, and ideological influence is growing exponentially through the more than 50 economic institutions of the party, especially in St. Louis, Missouri, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Huntsville, Alabama, St. Petersburg, Florida, and Oakland, California. Similarly, we are preparing for work in occupied Azania and reorganizing our economic project in Houston, Texas. All our mass organizations are involved in economic work as well. We fully recognize that a fundamental task of our revolution is clear unification between the party's economic and political work. Indeed, in recognizing that the political and economic are one and the same. In the short time since our 7th Congress, we have run an electoral campaign for City Council in St. Petersburg. In the process, we have achieved great expertise in extending the revolutionary anti-colonial struggle of our people into the electoral arena. Thousands of people have been forced to recognize and address the issue of reparations to African people, and a concrete approach to reparations that empowers the mass of African workers. While we lost the actual election by a large margin, we won nearly 10 times as many votes against the incumbent in our district than we did 2 years ago in a similar citywide race. We split the Democratic Party and literally talked to or communicated with scores of thousands of people. We reached so many who otherwise would not have heard our message and who would only know of the reparations issue through the colonial media, the opportunist presidential candidates, and other liberals who are attempting to define the issue in a manner that liquidates its revolutionary essence. One of the most significant revolutionary contributions of our party over the years was to open up a new front of struggle at the height of the counterinsurgency war that defeated the Black Revolution of the 60s. This new front was the creation of the African People's Solidarity Committee, APSC, in 1976 behind enemy lines among the white colonizer population. Since our 7th Congress, there has been an exponential leap in the growth of the anti-colonial solidarity movement under the party's leadership. The Uhuru Solidarity Movement exists in more than 130 cities and 30 states within current U.S. borders. USM is spreading and winning the demand for reparations and fracturing the reactionary solidarity of a politically backward, parasitic colonial population. This first plenary of our 7th Congress allows our party to come together and measure the success of our work and to fix all our errors. It is a part of the party's process that recognizes the unity of practice and theory by testing and improving our theory by actual practice. Theory without practice is meaningless. Practice without theory is blind. Vanguard up.
Uhuru. Thank you, Chair Jesse. What an incredible mobilizing call to the first plenary of the 7th Congress. I am so excited to be going to all 3 days, February 1st, February 2nd, and February 3rd here in St. Petersburg, Florida. It is not too late if you don't have your ticket. And I want to just go over some of the comments. So we have Uhuru from Kristen Forthen about the Reparations Study Group, Uhuru from Chairwoman Penny, Paula Lipsy viewing from Arizona, Uhuru #salute this study and leadership. And that's all our comments
Uhuru.
for now.
Great to have everybody on.
Yes, so please share far and wide, and thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't commented, go ahead and ask your questions about this call. We're going to dive into it a bit, or about any topic that is addressed in it. I know something that really spoke to me is that the chairman is writing that he's calling on, and the party's calling on everyone in the entire Uhuru movement, all of the organizations under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, which includes USM, to attend. And it mentions USM specifically, even though there's many different organizations under the party's leadership, and how incredible it is that we're in 130 cities and 30 states within the U.S. And we know that there's more places elsewhere that we are, including in the UK and elsewhere. So Also, you can call in at 727. Whoops. Someone just commented, so moved up a little bit. 727-537-9171 if you want to make your comment via actual voice. So, Uhuru, I know that I think it's really important that we, internalize the significance of the African People's Socialist Party and how it is different from anything else. If you don't mind here, Jesse, I want to read a section from Vanguard, just two paragraphs. Yeah. You have your copy of Vanguard, the advanced attachment. It is on page, whoops. You get the, yes, so on page 49 at the bottom that I'm reading. The African People's Socialist Party, our organization was determined to solve the problems of the revolution. Our people and our movement needed a revolutionary party of steeled cadre, guided by revolutionary principles and advanced revolutionary theory. We had to fiercely fight to build the party of the African working class, the only social force capable of leading the struggle of African national liberation, unification, and socialism to its successful conclusion. The African working class, under the leadership of its own revolutionary party, conscious of its own selfish interests and guided by the revolutionary theory of African internationalism, had to lead our struggle for victory over colonial capitalism and usher in a new world free of class exploitation and human oppression. And that is just two paragraphs of this entire book that I encourage everyone to read.
Uhuru.
So, sure, Jesse.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and encourage people to send in questions. And a couple of comments. Yeah, I just want to unite. It's an extremely powerful call that the chairman wrote, and I know that he's been working really hard on his political report, which I hear is set to be released possibly tonight. So I've been checking my email rather obsessively to see if that's out yet, because I know everybody's really, on the edge of our seats, ready to read the chairman's political report. Because, when the chairman puts out a political report, which he does for every Congress, and they've been published as books, he does so much in these reports. He always, articulates the theory of African internationalism in a new way that helps us understand it on a deeper level, and often even uncovers, new facets of the theory, and, sums up and analyzes things. Like in Uneasy Equilibrium, he wrote extensively about the question of the nation, and went into that and produced what in many ways is the definitive position of the party on the national question, the question of African national identity. And the chapter that Chairwoman Penny studied last Sunday, the theory of African internationalism, that's also in that book and also republished in Vanguard, just really puts forward the theory. But he also usually gives a kind of summation of the world situation, like what's going on in the world right now, in a way that, because it's a lot of stuff happening right now. Like Australia is burning to the ground. Over 1 billion animals have gone extinct in Australia, and from these fires, which would not be happening if the indigenous people still had control of that land.
Yeah.
Full stop there. But also, the U.S. aggression in the Middle East and the ongoing threats against Iran, ongoing occupation of Iraq, drone strikes that continue throughout Africa, the expansion of AFRICOM and military bases throughout Africa, the threats against Russia, the threats against China, not to mention the unrelenting colonial violence and genocide against African people inside U.S. borders, against Mexican people inside U.S. borders, against the indigenous people, which Mexicans are indigenous, but the indigenous people who suffer on so-called reservations or concentration camps, as the chairman says, that just rages with intensity every single day, as well as other aspects of the crisis of imperialism, like the crisis of white people, which, as the chairman says, white people are the crisis of the white population is that we have assumed and taken for granted that we're going to have a future where we can go to school, get a degree, get a job, start a family, get a nice house, 2 cars, whatever, and a dog, and everything's going to be fine, and it just goes on for the next generation. And now that's gone. Yeah. It's totally gone. There's no assumption that world is something you can just automatically take for granted. Now, why is that? Because the substance of that assumption that, you know, everything is going to be hunky-dory and, you know, all the wealth is just going to keep passing on from generation to generation is built on the fact that the entire reality, material reality of white wealth, white multi-generational prosperity and inheritance is built on the enslavement of African people, the theft of African resources that continues to this day, the genocide against the indigenous people and the theft of their land, and the ongoing colonial oppression. You know, reparations to African people is not just for something that happened hundreds of years ago. Reparations to African people is for something that's happening right now. The fact that over half the people incarcerated in the U.S. colonial prison system are African people. You know, Africans are what, like, you know, 15% of the U.S. population or something, but more than half the population of the prison system in a country that has the largest prison population of any on the planet Earth. Okay, that's the United States of America, and that the prison system has functioned as an economic stimulus, as Chairwoman Penny Hess has exposed in Overturning the Culture of Violence, in many rural white communities that faced economic distress in the 1980s when the Reagan administration closed down factories throughout much of so-called middle America and rural white America. There was a lot of, a wave of kind of destitution. How did those white people rescue themselves from that momentary, experience of discomfort? It was through literally putting up billboards that said, "Build a prison here." And they built prisons in those rural white communities that provided jobs to white people, that created a boom in those white areas. Spin-off industries, you know, the companies that are associated with the phones, you know, to make a call when a prisoner makes a call. Now there's technology, which is even the most dehumanizing, horrendous thing, where you go in to visit somebody who's locked up and you have to look at a screen. You don't even get to look at the actual human being. So that company that's building those screens is making money. There is a lot of money, billions if not trillions of dollars, made off of the prison industry, which is a colonial prison industry that is there to lock up Africans and destroy and just in so many different ways inflict genocidal damage upon African people in this country. And that has functioned as another means by which white people have been able to ascend upon the ladder of economic opportunity towards security and wealth and prosperity. So white people's crisis today is the crisis of imperialism. And as the chairman says, the crisis of white people becomes part of the crisis of imperialism. Now, part of the crisis of imperialism is that white people are not reproducing. White people are dying. White people are killing ourselves. We're depressed. We have anxiety. We're taking pills. We're drinking ourselves to death. We're committing suicide. Like, that is part of the crisis of imperialism, that the imperialist citizenry, which is the white population, is in a state of severe crisis and doesn't see a future. So the chairman analyzes all of this and brings it all together and shows the way forward. And that's what he does in the political report that I haven't read yet. So that's what he does in every political report, is what I'm saying. And I'm very excited for the latest understandings of African internationalism. And I'm so excited that I've probably been talking about it for 10 minutes and I haven't talked about the study that we just did. But I'm just really excited to read the chairman's political report, and I know you are too. So keep checking your email, because you'll probably be getting something about that very soon. But one other thing, if I may. Reparations to African people. You probably heard of that by now, okay? And it's really interesting because, the chairman made a goal for reparations to become a household word in the 1980s, okay? And now they're talking about reparations. They had a congressional hearing about reparations.
What a novel idea.
I know. I mean, the former governor of Massachusetts just came out. He's running for president, okay? He used to be against reparations. Now he's for reparations. He just made a statement. What's this other guy's name that's running for president? The billionaire.
Which one?
Oh my God, what's his name? Not Bloomberg. Oh, Tom Steyer, a billionaire who's running for president on the Democratic ticket, just came out in support of reparations to African people. The Union for Reform Judaism, the largest Jewish denomination in the United States, had their annual conference in Chicago recently. They came out, they passed a resolution in support of reparations to black people in the United States for slavery. So reparations is is a household word. It is a buzzword, and it's becoming the new normal for people, white people who fancy themselves progressive, to come out and say, okay, I support reparations. That didn't happen by accident. That happened as a result of sustained campaigning and struggle from the ground up by the African People's Socialist Party, including the African People's Socialist Party's hand reaching into the white community to force the discussion about reparations through the African People's Solidarity Committee and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. There was an article in CNN about all these presidential candidates that are now coming out for reparations. And the headline, I think, was very accurate. It said, 2020 Democrats attempt to redefine reparations. Because that's what they're doing. And that's what the chairman said in that article that we just studied, is that what these Democrats and these liberal opportunist reformists will do is attempt to rob and liquidate reparations of its revolutionary essence. They will turn reparations into, they're basically rebranding already existing Democratic Party policy agenda points as reparations. Like, well, we want to do financial assistance for low-income community, and call that reparations, or call welfare programs reparations, or call free education and you slashing tuition costs reparations. So they're trying to rebrand their milquetoast, centrist, reformist, liberal, imperialist, bourgeois agendas with the banner of reparations. And if we don't do our jobs as the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, they will succeed. And we can't let that happen. We have to go out to the masses of white people and bring the party's revolutionary definition of reparations to the masses of white people in a more profound and impactful way than we've ever done before. We have to escalate our presence. We have to intensify our presence. Because reparations is not a payout. Reparations is a function of the African Revolution. What that means for white people, reparations means solidarity with African liberation. That's what it means. If you're for reparations, it means you stand in solidarity with the right of African people to take back everything that belongs to them, and you're actually already turning some of that over as well. In addition to standing for it, you're doing it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
I really want to appreciate that, Chair Jesse, and fully unite, and that it does have to come from the ground up, and the chairman is calling on that.
Exactly.
We can't just rely on, we want to take up all the political space, so we are on YouTube, we are on Facebook.
That's right.
But the African Revolution, in the form of, Black power and white face is knocking on your door.
Exactly.
Is meeting you at the street, literally knocking on your door, literally, meeting you outside of the farmer's market, coming to your book club, whatever the case is, to meeting you face to face.
And actually, right now as we speak, Casey Mackey, who's the Midwest Regional Organizer of USM and APSC, she hit the road. She went to Louisville. She's with comrades in Louisville right now, hopefully new people, talking about USM, talking about reparations, talking about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. And that's something that we want to do. If you are watching this and you're in a city and you're like, wow, I wish the Uhuru Solidarity Movement existed here, join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, contact us, info@uhurusolidarity.org. We will literally come to your town and hold an event in your living room and invite your friends and family over. We'll have the exact same discussion that we're having in this living room, about reparations, about the chairman's theory of African internationalism, about the solidarity movement. That's what we want to do. We want to, like you said, it's knocking on your door, it's meeting you at the farmer's market, it's meeting you in your college campus.
Yes.
We want to be everywhere. So, and also want to shout out USM St. Pete, because USM St. Pete in the past week or two was at the Women's March demonstration. Ali Ayello spoke at that.
Yes.
We were at the No War on Iran demonstration and recruited members there. And we even had comrades at a Roe v. Wade rally, talking about how the end to all forms of oppression, including, attempting to control the rights of women, all of that takes place on the back of the oppression of African people. And the solution to all of it is the liberation of African people. Jamie Simpson, Johan Bedingfield were out there organizing the people, signing people up. That's the kind of movement that we have to be. We have to be everywhere all the time.
Uhuru. And I want to give a shout out to Tama Goldberg-Udini, who
Uhuru,
says,
Tama.
Uhuru, we love you, Tama, Uhuru. And who's a member of USM St. Pete. Also, Santosh is joining in, Uhuru Santosh. John Hill Jr. and Hirsch.
John Hill Jr.
Yes, Ann Hirsch is tuning in. So Uhuru,
Ann Hirsch. All right,
Uhuru,
great.
Who ran for city council
Yes.
on a platform of unity through reparations.
Yes.
A longtime member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So
Uhuru.
All right. I really want to appreciate that, Chair Jesse. And let me see. I wanted to know if you could say, a bit more about the, crisis of, white people in this period. And, there's a lot of talk about revolutionary self-care, quote unquote, and, mental illness, mental health, people's personal problems.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people who are like, I support what you're doing, but I have to, deal with, what I'm going through. And there's different, everyone's different. So, but I wanted to, people who, who, well, I wanted to know if you could say more on that.
Yeah, I think it's a loaded subject that we could talk for hours about, and I think there's a lot to say about that, which is, you talk about like the tendency to, of self-care and this whole notion that's really promoted in like left liberal circles that you need to take some time for yourself. You got to take care of yourself, and you can't always be doing something for others or whatever, fighting for other people. Well, let's break that down for a second, because first of all, we're not doing this for other people.
Yeah.
We understand that fighting for reparations to African people is actually in our deepest human interest. It's in our material interests. And that is scientifically a legitimate statement. And, there is a moral obligation, I think, for a white person to fight for reparations.
Yes.
But you could make a convincing argument for why a white person should support reparations that involves no mention of morality.
That's very true.
But I think the moral question is also important, because we have participated in some of the most unspeakable crimes against humanity, either directly through putting our hands on the ropes that were used to lynch and torture African human beings, or through saying nothing and standing by and benefiting from the outcome of such gore and terror. So there is a moral obligation to atone and to right the wrongs that we have either committed or been complicit in the infliction against the rest of humanity. But even without the moral argument, it is not in our interests as white people to align our futures with a parasitic, fundamentally oppressive, cruel, torturous, exploiting social system that requires the oppression of the majority of the human beings on the planet Earth for it to survive. It is not smart financially or in any other way to hedge your bets on a system, on an economy, on a future whose bottom line is the suffering and misery of the vast majority of the people on planet Earth. Do you assume that the vast majority of the people on the planet Earth are going to allow that to continue infinitely? I don't think so. They're going to put an end to it. Africans are going to be free. The indigenous people are going to take their land back. Palestine is going to be Palestine again.
Yes.
And the Palestinians are going to take back what belongs to them. Korea will be reunified. Vietnam will be ultimately freed. All of the Middle East, and Africa, the borders will come down, and the people will regain control and possession of their resources and their self-determination. And that is going to mean apocalypse for imperialism. Like, that's the end. That's the end of capitalism and U.S. imperialism. And that doesn't need to be the end of you, though,
Yeah.
But if you assume that the only future you're going to have is in this little white world that literally right beneath the surface of every single waking and sleeping moment of life for a white person is the oppression and exploitation of African people, that's why, like the chairman says, the imperialist imagination can be seen in Hollywood, right? And you see they don't have any hope for the future.
There's all these memes and everything about,
You want a glimpse into the brain of imperialism, as if imperialism was one organism. You could see what its thoughts were. You would see zombies, or you would see, a reflection of the past, a nostalgia for the past, like the chairman's brilliant analysis. You would see either zombies and vampires, the undead, or you see Iron Man and Superman, icons of a bygone era of U.S. imperial power when America was strong and mighty and could do whatever it wanted all over the world without having to worry about being blasted to smithereens by an IED placed by a heroic Afghan resisting person. So those days are over, and that's good, but the point is there's no future in imperialism. So to get back to your question, I think that there's another thing I would say about the whole idea. I guess my point is it's self-care for a white person. If you care about yourself, you should join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and you should fight for reparations to African people. And that is not a guarantee that you will suddenly be relieved of all of the symptoms, psychologically and otherwise, that you accrue being in a social system built on rape and torture and pillage. Like, you're gonna be messed up. We're all gonna be messed up. We're all gonna have our baggage having been products of a social system of a country, the only country in human history that literally wouldn't exist if not for the annihilation of an entire continent and the subjugation by whips and chains of another continent. Like, this country wouldn't exist. So I don't know what it means to be a happy-go-lucky, tranced, zoned out, well-adjusted white person, mentally healthy white person in this social system. I'm not sure that exists, and if it does, it's more terrifying to me than a messed up white person.
Yeah.
So the only social system that lies to you and tells you that if you go with us, we will guarantee you happiness is America, which literally has the pursuit of happiness enshrined in its essential documents.
And as Jerome Penny said, pursuit of happiness,
right.
Not actual happiness. We're always pursuing.
The pursuit which never ends. You're always pursuing it. You always want more, and you never really get to it. There's always an emptiness, and there always will be, because it's a false bourgeois individual happiness that requires denial, the denial and ignorance of convenience that the chairman talks about, putting the blinders on and only seeing your narrow little slice of life on the backs of mass suffering and misery for the majority of the people on the planet Earth. So it's not really the goal of life to experience bourgeois happiness. Like, that's not really what it's all about. I think what life is about is fighting for justice and fighting for liberation for human beings, and fighting for a future for the peoples of the planet Earth. And the way that white people can do that is through reparations to African people. So, is there depression? Is there anxiety? Sure. Is there trauma? Sure, in the white world. But think about what African people have gone through.
Every day.
God damn.
Yeah.
Like, at the hands of white people. Imagine that you live in a country and the only reason why you're there is because your ancestors were forced at gunpoint to get on ships and be brought here to work for hundreds of years for nothing. Like, that's trauma. They call it post-traumatic slave syndrome, and that is something, and it's not even post. It's still happening.
It's still happening.
Like, imagine the trauma of being an African mother who fears every single time her child goes out the door to get on the school bus that may be the last time she clutches and kisses him.
Yeah.
That's life for African people. And the African People's Socialist Party is saying that in spite of the pain, because of the pain, because of the trauma, because of the real legitimate causes of depression and anxiety and fear that African people live with under imperialism every single day, that revolution must be the struggle of African people, and the same thing is true of white people. Because of those things that have resulted in you having whatever mental illness or contradictions that you might experience, it is because of that we have to fight to rid the planet Earth of this foul, nasty cancer called imperialist white power that has distorted humanity into something unrecognizable and grotesque in pursuit of its own happiness. And we have to reject that. It is sickening. We want nothing to do with it. So I implore you, okay, if you are one of those white people who's thought about joining USM, but you're thinking that once you get your own stuff sorted out, then maybe you'll take the plunge and get involved, just do it. Just join USM. We would rather have, white people who are trying to work through the contradictions of living in a nasty imperialist society, but who are committed to fighting for revolution and black power and reparations, than to use it as a reason not to. And I mean that without an ounce of sarcasm or cynicism or anything. It kind of reminds me of a story that the chairman tells about in the 80s, I think it was, when the party was fighting for the Measure O campaign, which was a revolutionary land reform initiative to build black community control of housing when there was extreme homelessness. And by the way, now there's 4 African women in Oakland who were occupying a home, homeless women who were then evicted by SWAT. And it's been I think they're part of an organization called I can't remember the name of it, but it's like Moms for Homes or something like that.
Okay.
And that's the legacy of the Uhuru movement. The Uhuru movement did that in the 80s in Oakland, and they were occupied a building with a family that was stormed by the police and everything, and they were forced to evict, and they stayed there. They stood their ground, and it was very powerful. But anyway, so during that struggle, there was a liberal opportunist organization connected to the Communist Party USA and Angela Davis, incidentally, that was against Measure O. And they wanted to build a homeless shelter. And the party's program was to actually attack the relationship between the slumlords and the residents.
And have control over housing, not just be shoved into a building.
Exactly. And the CPUSA's thing was like, well, we need to build a homeless shelter. And their argument, which the chairman laughed at because it was so absurd, is that, how can you make a revolution if you don't have a place to live? And he said, you make a revolution because you don't have a place to live.
Yeah.
So I would say the same thing for white people who are like on the fence about joining the movement because, you're not perfectly mentally healthy or happy or well-adjusted inside of imperialism. That's why you should join. That means that you still have some of your humanity despite having been created by an inhumane social system, and the way to fully express that humanity in action and discover your connection to the rest of humanity is through joining the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and building solidarity with the African Revolution.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you, Chair Jesse. And Tama Goldbergidini sends a big red heart. And Ann Hirsch says Uhuru, exclamation mark. Johan Bedingfield says reparations is revolutionary demand by the African People's Socialist Party. And then Judith Turner has joined, and Bakari Olatunji of the African People's Socialist Party has joined. Uhuru Bakari.
Oakland, we're just talking about.
Uhuru.
Party in Oakland.
A historic Measure O campaign.
Yes.
So we have a few minutes left here of discussion before going into announcements. I just really want to appreciate what you just said, Chair Jesse, and how in this, parasitic capitalist social system that is individualist, that we isolate ourselves from the rest of humanity, and just like you're just supposed to obsess about yourself and your goals and your 5-year plan and just be in your head constantly. It's it's a really, as I said, isolating, but also just like you're not going to be mentally healthy that way. And you're just supposed to live for yourself and just be selfish. But then, in the Uhuru movement, you have something to live for, and there's a future ahead. And you get to be comrades, and be a part of the future, be part of building the future, and to have the motivation to do everything you can in order to bring more to the Uhuru movement, to bring more of your skills, to bring more of your energy, to put your labor into forwarding the African Revolution is a really incredible thing. And then in that context, to do whatever you need to do to give more to the movement, that is a motivating thing, I think, in terms of doing whatever you have to do, to, I don't want to not care for, not the bourgeois self-care, but, self-maintenance to give more to the movement, I think is something that is, truly, revolutionary self-care, for lack of a better term.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think that the Uhuru movement and the African Revolution gives you something to live for.
It gives you something to live for.
It gives you something to be healthy for. It gives you something to be sober for. It gives you something to live for. It really does. Something to, it inspires a healthier lifestyle, actually, and taking care of yourself, but not as an excuse or not as an attack on the revolution, but as a means by which to do more, to forward the revolution. So, yeah, I agree.
And I know the members of the African People's Socialist Party and its constituent organization, the African People's Solidarity Committee, they have stances on, party and APSC members, and drugs and alcohol, etc. But it's, not out of any, moral thing. It's to, make sure that, the soldiers of the revolution are able to give their all to it.
Exactly. Yeah, and the chairman often quotes a great statement from Frantz Fanon, who was an Algerian. Actually, he was a psychiatrist who.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a psychiatrist who was treating Algerian victims of French colonial torture.
Wow.
And as a result of his experiences, interviewing them and hearing of what they had gone through, he joined the Algerian Revolution.
Wow.
And he became an African revolutionary.
Because no pill is going to fix colonialism.
Exactly.
You have to take action.
Only one thing is going to fix that.
Yes.
And as Frantz Fanon said, the only way that the colonized can be healed is by killing the colonizer. And I think that the only way the members of the colonizer nation can be healed is also by killing the colonizer, which doesn't mean kill yourself. It means commit national suicide, which means kill your relationship to a white power social system.
Yes.
And participate with the colonized in destroying the relationship that is the basis for there being a colonizer and a colonized to begin with. That's the way to heal. That's the way to go forward with the rest of humanity.
Uhuru. I appreciate that, Chair Jesse, and salute you for laying that out for us. And if anyone has any further questions or comments, comment them below or call that number, and feel free to interrupt us as I go into our announcements.
Excuse me.
So, and of course, if you have not already joined the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, you can join or donate at uhurusolidarity.org. And I say donate, but pay reparations.
May I make a little pitch here?
Yes.
All right, so I think a lot of you are members of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is great. If you're a member, if you're a general member or a student member, or if you are a member because you gave once, thank you for doing that.
Yes.
And I want to encourage you, make it monthly. And you don't know how much of a difference it makes for the programs of the party, for the Black Power Blueprint, to have a sustained base of resources. Like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get out of a place where it's just like spurts. We want it to be a sustained, ongoing process of turning over resources to the work of the African People's Socialist Party. So if you're a one-time donor or you're a member who's given a one-time donation, we appreciate that, and that is profound, and we want to encourage you to make that a monthly sustainer membership. And also, if you're already a sustainer, consider upgrading. I am a, what am I, $25 a month Queen Nzinga? Is that Queen Nzinga? No. Katura Carey. And that's a really cool level.
Yes. A co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party.
Very cool. But I'm going to up it. I'm going to become a Malcolm X. I'm going to add $5 a month.
Uhuru.
So, 'tis the season to increase your sustainer level or become a sustainer of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. We're gearing up for a big membership drive in February as well.
Awesome. I'm
Uhuru.
stoked. Uhuru.
I am
My
too.
Californianness coming out. No, I've started saying y'all, but I've also kept the... Anyway.
That's all right.
All right. So you can go to uhurusolidarity.org to become a member of USM or to boost your membership or just pay reparations. We have not already. And just double checking for any more comments. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me though. So our first announcement is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement's 2020 National Convention, April 18th and 19th. That's a Saturday and Sunday in St. Louis, Missouri. And register at the link that our moderator has just posted in the comments. And I encourage everyone to be there. This is the most important thing, of course, the plenary and the National Convention of USM are the most important things that you could possibly go to. If you go to one thing, go to either thing really, but to the convention is all of USM coming together. And Chair Jesse will of course be delivering the political report of USM, but Chairman Amalia Shatella himself will be speaking, keynote speaker, and Chairwoman Penny Hess of APSC as well. And you do not want to miss it. There will be, panels and also trainings that we need in order to forward the Afghan Revolution onto the pedestal of oppression, to bring the Afghan Revolution into our own white communities. So we need, all of that training and political education in order to, carry forward the revolution on our front. So I want to see everyone there. And,
Reparations Uprising.
Yes, it is themed the Reparations Uprising. So let's rise to the call. Uhuru. And then Reparations Study Group, Episode 8, is this coming Thursday. It is an article by Chairman Amalia Shatella, "For Socialism to Occur, Capitalism Must Be Destroyed." Although I'm wondering if we should do the call to, or the political report, or parts of it. So we can discuss that.
We'll discuss.
And then the Afghan People's Socialist Party's first plenary of the 7th Congress, of course, February 1st through 3rd, St. Petersburg, Florida. Register at apspplenary.org. And this coming Saturday is the Reparations Tour and Speakers Bureau meeting. So if you would like to attend that, email info@uhurusolidarity.org. That's this Saturday, January 25th at 8:30 p.m. We will be discussing and planning the tours of USM that will be taking place this year, starting in March. So
that's right.
Let's get ready. So we're 2 minutes over.
I got a quick announcement.
Yes.
Reparations in Action is back.
Yes!
On the airwaves, Tuesday, January 28th at 12 p.m.
Awesome.
Eastern Standard Time. And it will also be released as a podcast.
That is exciting. Very excited to listen to it on Black Power 96 FM radio at blackpower96.org.
Yep.
Or on Facebook page at same handle, Black Power 96. And then whatever link the podcast is going to be on. I'm very excited to hear USM's Reparations radio show and podcast.
Yes.
Uhuru. All right. So if there's no further comments or questions, I just want to appreciate everyone who has been tuning in. And unity through
Reparations!
Uhuru.